Hello and welcome to this CodyHouse tutorial. Today we will be creating together a cart drawer, which is this component we just released on CodyHouse. We will not be creating the whole drawer functionality. We will be using a free component that we have on CodyHouse, the drawer component. This one. Okay. To get started, you can download the CodyFrame on GitHub. You will find the link to the repository in the description of this video. So I have already downloaded my copy and renamed the folder cart drawer. Now we can launch this project. Watch. And if we check the content, so this is a copy of CodyFrame. Although I have created a new folder, components, in the CSS folder, where I have basically downloaded the SCSS of the two components, let's call them sub-components that we need for this tutorial. So the drawer, and then the custom select component, this one. Okay. I have already included also the JavaScript of these two components because they do have also JS. So make sure to import both JavaScript and CSS. Now, before we start, just one final note. If we go to the framework documentation page, we are using Gulp. Don't forget to include this line of code here in the style of your project, because this line makes sure that when you create new components here, their CSS is automatically compiled into the style of your project. Okay, now we can get started. Let's go to the index page, and right now we have nothing. We haven't really included any HTML yet, so we can start by importing the drawer component. Let's copy the HTML and let's paste it here. Okay, so we have the drawer structure with a button, which is the controller of the drawer, and then we have the drawer itself, and the structure is quite simple. Now, if we save and go back to our project, now you can see we already have the button and the drawer is working. And that's because we have already included both the SCSS and the JavaScript of this component. Now, just for the sake of this tutorial, we may want to center the button. So we can use a few utility classes of the framework. We can use flex, center, and then we need to set a height equal to the whole viewport size to make sure the button is in the center. Okay. Now we can go to the drawer content and remove this stuff entirely. We can use the component on CodyHouse as a reference for what we will be creating. First of all, we want to check the code and see that we have a class to make the drawer visible. And we want to make sure this class is applied. So we have to remove this class later because this is a class which is added when you click on the button, but for the purpose of the tutorial, we want to see the drawer all the time and not having to click always on this button to trigger the drawer. Okay, let's check the content. So we want to have a title, your cart, with the number of items, and then we can start creating this footer element over here. So let's go back. We have, let's use an h1 tag. Your cart. Let's add the number of items as well. Now, the h1 is probably too big, so let's modify the size of the text with a text utility class for the size. And now let's create the footer. So we can right below the button, we can add the footer element. And in here we have the subtotal and the checkout button. So we can enter subtotal and then just a random number. And in here, we need a link to the checkout page. You can use a few utility classes of the framework, btn, btnmd, to make the text bigger. This is btn primary. Let me see. As you can see, the footer is not visible. And if we check the code, well, that's because the drawer body has a height of 100%. So the drawer body in the drawer component is the scrollable content of the drawer, and it's taking the whole height. So we can fix this by using a flex trick. We can go to the parent of the drawer body, set the flex and flex column this way. Now, if we go back now, the footer, is visible. Well, that's because when you use Flexbox, you're saying, I want this space here, this vertical space, because we are using a flex column, which sets the flex direction equal to column. We want this space to be shared by the children of the flex parent. That's why this footer is now visible. Now we can target the footer and add some utility classes. For example, we can use a padding x and d. We can use a padding y of small. We can add a border top, and then we can change the border contrast to, let's pick a lower. Let me save and go back. And here we go. Now we have some styling for the footer. Because we're using this flexbox trick, if the content of the body here is longer than the available space, then you can scroll in here, and this footer is going to be sticky, so it's going to remain above the content in here. So if you have a lot of items in your cart, you will keep this footer with the checkout button always visible. Now in here we want to add a 100% width to the button, and you can target this element here. We want to split subtotal and the actual price, so we can use a span element, and we can add a span element here as well, because when we do so, we can use these elements as flexbox children. So we can target the parent, flex, justify, between. Now if we save, we have separated the subtotal and the amount. Finally, we can add a margin bottom of, let's try XXS. And here we go. It looks fine. So we have the footer sorted out. We can move on and create these elements here. Right, so we will be using a new class here. So we can use an ordered list, because this is a list of products after all. And we will be needing for sure a margin top, let's set equal to small. And then here we need a class for this element. So what kind of class? So this is a drawer component, but at the same time, this is also a cart. So we can create a new component inside this drawer component. So I'm kind of mixing two components. They share the same space, let's say, but they serve different purposes. So the drawer cart will target this table of products and will allow me to use the BAM naming convention for this element. So we want to set this equal to cart product. Okay. Now we can create a new file in here. This is the cart drawer.scss. And Let's check the reference. So we have an image, some product information, and then we have the price with a remove button here. So let's add this content. The image is also a link. If you check here, you will see that this is a link. So we want to use an anchor tag as a wrapper, then an EMG with a product preview alt tag or preview image. And then I have already imported the same image of the demo, copy relative path, and then paste it here. Replace this because the path is now different. Now if we save, we have the image here. Now let's go back. Actually, I want to remove this text component from here because we don't need it. Right here, we need, right after the image, we need another div element for the product information, and then we need one more for the price. So the price of this item is $49. Right below the price, we need a button with remove. So I'm using a button, not a link, because this is supposed to do something. It's not really linking to any place in our project. Now in this section here, we need a name product with some metadata right below, and then we have the custom select. So we can use an H2 with the name of the product. Let's call it product 1, and then we have paragraph with information about this product, and then we need the custom select. We can go back to Cody House and look for the custom select component. It's this one. We can copy the HTML and paste it here. Custom select. All right, so to hide the label, we can add an SR only class of the framework because we want this to be accessible to screen readers, but we don't want to make it visible for other users because it's clear this is a selector of something, of a size. Now we can remove all this stuff here, the opt group as well, and then we can set a default size, it's not a size, it's a quantity. So default quantity of 1, then we have 2, and then we have 3. This is a select quantity 1 because this is the first product. Let me save and let's go back to our page, our project. Okay, so we just have to make some order here. Stuff is really a bit messy right now. So let's start by targeting this class. We have created the product, and then we can use a display grid on this element because we want to set the grid template columns equal to. So the first column is the size of the image. We can set this size equal to, so let me check here, what size? 80 pixels. All right, so let's go back and let's set the size of the image column equal to 80 pixels. Now we want the product information to take as much space as it is available. So we're going to use 1FR and then auto for the price with the remove button. Now, if we save, now as you can see, we are starting to create a grid for our elements here. So a few changes. We need to target the H2, which is clearly too big, and set a text base. Now we can target the metadata and set a color contrast medium. So we want to reduce the impact of this element. Color contrast medium, and then reduce the size of the text as well. Let me check what we have. We can set some spacing here with the gap equal to space. Let's try XS. So just to give it some space in between the elements. We can target the image as well, which is here with a class of, so this is the cart and this is the image of the cart. Let me take this class. Let's go here. And right above the product, we want to add some style. Display block to this, sorry, this is a display block to the container, to the anchor tag, and I want to add display block to this element as well, the image element. And then a few styling for the anchor tag. We want to set a border radius equal to radius MD. And then we want to set a box shadow equal to shadow MD. And then an overflow hidden, otherwise the border radius won't be visible. Then we can go below, and when you go with the mouse over this element, we want to set a box shadow equal to shadow small. And we also want to reduce the opacity just a little bit. At this point, we may want to use a transition, target all the elements, 0.2 seconds. Now, as you can see, the elements are, this image is kind of stretched. We can fix this by setting on the product element, align items equal to start. So we want this kind of alignment. We want them to be aligned here on top. Right. Now, if we target this element here, now we want this color probably to be the same of the product one. So to do so, we can set a class of color contrast higher. And then here we want to right align the text. This button here, we will add some custom style to this button. We can set a class, so we can use a GDR drawer cart. Let's call it remove button. Okay, let's go in here. This remove button, we want to use a mixin we have in the framework, the reset mixin, to remove the default style of the buttons. Now we can set the font size equal to small text, and then we can give it a color equal to color primary. Let me check. Now it's looking better. And on a hover, we may just want to add the text decoration of underline. Okay. Now it's looking better already. Let me add also a cursor pointer. And now here we go. Now I can tell something is not working with the custom select, and that's because I haven't actually imported the custom select. I have imported the number input. We can fix this by going to the custom select component, view code. Let's copy the name here, new file, copy the SCSS. Here we go. Now if we save and go back here, now you can see the custom select is working properly. This custom select needs to be smaller, that's for sure. We can add a class here, a drawer cart select. Let me select this and go to the cart drawer, and in here we can target this element and modify the, first of all, the font size equal to, we can try always a text small. Now we can modify the padding as well and set it to equal to space XXS. Let's try something really small. It's not small enough. So we can set a padding XXXXS for the vertical padding, and then with 3x for the horizontal padding. Now, if we refresh this one, nothing is changing. Well, that's because I'm probably targeting the wrong element. If we go here, we need to target this select input. So we can enter select input, move this above, and now it should become smaller. Yes, it's very small. Now we can set in here a size as well, width equal to 3.6 m. Now if we check the custom select, we have a few variables we can change. So these are some custom properties that we provide to make it easier to customize components. So for example, the icon size could be smaller. Let's try with the 0.875 m. And then this margin here could be smaller as well. So we can try with an XS and see what happens. Now, as you can see, this icon is smaller. The margin to the right is smaller as well. And now we have our quantity selector. Perfect. We can at this point set a margin top to this element, to the metadata here. Just a small margin top. Let's try with the XXS. Well, it's too much. Okay. We can set the same margin on the select element. Let me see, just to create some additional space. And then we can add the same margin to the button. Actually, let me increase just a little bit the margin top for these two elements, both for the button and the paragraph. And just to give it some space. And here we go. I think we are in a good point. We can consider the case where we have multiple products. To do so, we can create a new one. So we can copy this list item and create a new product. Now, let me just change the select name and ID equal to select quantity 2. And here we go. Now we have two products. Now that we have two products, we can target the product element and add some padding, vertical padding. So like equal to space small and then 0. Let me see if this is too much. It's probably a little bit too much. Let's try XS. And now we want to target the element, which is not the last child. So basically this is targeting all of the elements unless this is the last child, which means this style is not applied if we have only one product in our cart. And in this case, we want to set the border bottom equal to 1 pixel solid and then color contrast lower. Save and see, and now we have a nice separation in between the products. And I think we are done with the cart. We can check the responsive behavior just to make sure. We can remove the class from the drawer component. We can remove the drawer is visible class. And now if we save, the whole functionality should be there. So you can click and show the cart. All the elements are responsive. You can see the version, the mobile version as well. And as I was saying to you before, if we go back here just for the purpose of making a test. If we duplicate many times the products, let's consider we have so many products in our cart. Now you can scroll through the products and you will still get access to the button to close the drawer. And you have also the checkout here visible as well, which is really convenient because you always want to make sure the next step is available to the user. And in this case, the next step is proceed to checkout. Okay, we are done with this tutorial. Yeah, if you have some variations you want to show of this cart, show it to us, tweet to us on Twitter, and or leave a comment on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.